The Agent of Change by Janson Davies. Chapter 1. The Impossible Agent. Rick London stood at the edge of the orbital platform, watching the stars blink like distant warnings. His breath fogged the glass, though the climate controls kept the observation deck at a perfect 72 degrees. He wasn't cold. He was calculating. Behind him, the hum of the Galactic Intelligence Service pulsed through the walls, encrypted transmissions, biometric scans, and the quiet shuffle of agents who never asked questions. Rick had earned his solitude, 12 missions, 0 failures. He was the kind of operative they called when diplomacy collapsed and war was one whisper away. But this mission was different. Director Hathaway entered without ceremony, her boots echoing like a countdown. "Rick," she said, "we're asking for more than intel this time. We're asking for transformation." Rick turned, his face unreadable. "Define transformation." She handed him a classified dossier. Inside, schematics, genetic overlays, and a single word stamped in red: voluntary. "The Xelari High Command is planning something. We've intercepted fragments, fleet mobilizations, planetary lockdowns, encrypted war chants. But we can't decode their strategy from the outside. We need someone inside their military council." Rick flipped through the pages. The procedure was radical. 6 months of cellular re-engineering, bone restructuring, neural remapping. He would become Xelari in every way that mattered: appearance, physiology, even language. The process might not be reversible. "And if I say no?" he asked. "We'll ask someone else," Hathaway said, "but we won't find another Rick London." He stared at the stars again. Somewhere out there, a war was being planned, and somewhere closer, a nurse named Carly was already assigned to oversee the transformation. Rick didn't know her yet, but he would. He closed the dossier. "When do we start?" Hathaway smiled, just barely. "Now." Chapter 2. Mission Proposal. The briefing room was silent save for the low hum of the containment field that kept the classified files from leaking into the wider network. Rick sat alone at the table, the dossier open before him. The words blurred together: genetic grafting, neuroplastic reconfiguration, irreversible thresholds. It read less like a mission and more like a death certificate for the man he used to be. Director Hathaway paced behind him, her voice clinical. "The Xelari are not just militarized. They're mythologized. Their leaders are chosen through ritual combat, their strategies encoded in ancestral song. We can't decode them from orbit. We need someone inside their war councils." Rick didn't flinch. "You want me to become one of them?" "Not just physically," she said. "Culturally, emotionally. You'll need to think like them, speak like them, dream like them." He closed the folder. "And if I lose myself in the process?" Hathaway stopped pacing. "Then Earth gains a martyr. But if you succeed, we stop a war before it begins." Rick leaned back, eyes scanning the ceiling as if the stars were etched into the panels. He'd faced extinction-level threats before. He'd sabotaged black hole weapons, dismantled rogue AI colonies, even negotiated peace between rival asteroid syndicates. But this was personal. This was identity. A soft chime interrupted the tension. The door slid open and a woman stepped in. Mid-30s, calm eyes, a data pad in one hand, a medical scanner in the other. "This is Carly," Hathaway said. "She'll oversee your transformation." 6 months of cellular re-engineering. She's the best we have. Rick stood. Carly met his gaze without flinching. "I've read your file," she said. "You don't scare easily." Rick offered a dry smile. "I scare just fine. I just don't let it stop me." She nodded, then turned to Hathaway. "We'll need full biometric clearance and a neural dampening suite. The procedure starts tonight." Rick looked at Carly again. Something in her eyes, compassion maybe, or quiet defiance, made the room feel less like a tomb and more like a threshold. "Let's begin," he said. Chapter 3. The Defector. The transformation chamber was a cathedral of science: glass walls, suspended nutrient tanks, and surgical arms that moved like praying mantises. Rick lay inside a translucent cocoon, his body already beginning to shift. His skin had taken on a faint iridescence, and his bones ached with unfamiliar geometry. Carly monitored his vitals, her expression calm but unreadable. "You're stabilizing," she said. "Phase 1 complete." Rick tried to speak, but his vocal cords were recalibrating. The words came out garbled, half human, half Xelari. Carly nodded. "You'll be fluent soon, but there's someone you need to meet." The chamber doors hissed open. A figure stepped through, tall, angular, cloaked in a fabric that shimmered like starlight. His face was unmistakably Xelari: elongated skull, bioluminescent veins, eyes like twin eclipses. But his posture was wrong, too relaxed, too human. "This is Valen," Carly said. "He defected from the Xelari military 5 years ago. He's agreed to guide you through their customs, behaviors, and command rituals." Rick sat up, his spine clicking into a new configuration. Why would a Xelari betray his own kind? Valan's voice was low, melodic, and laced with something like regret. "Because I saw what they were becoming. The invasion isn't conquest, it's purification. They believe Earth is a contagion. I couldn't be part of that." Rick studied him. "And you think I can pass as one of you?" Valan stepped closer. "You already do." "But mimicry isn't enough. You must learn their cadence, their pride, their fear. You must become the kind of Xelari who commands respect and suspicion." He handed Rick a neural interface. "This contains their war songs, their tactical rituals, their sacred lies. Study them, and when the time comes, lie better than they do." Carly watched the exchange, her eyes flickering with concern. "He'll be your guide, but he's not your ally. Not yet." Valan turned to her. "Trust is earned, and Rick will need more than biology to survive what's coming." Outside the chamber, a sleek vessel hovered in the docking bay, Valan's ship. It was unlike anything in Earth's fleet, asymmetrical, alive with shifting geometry, and cloaked in a field that bent light and memory. Rick stood, his legs trembling with new strength. "When do we leave?" Valan smiled, a gesture that looked almost human. "When you stop asking human questions." Chapter 4. The Vessel and the Void. Rick stood before the ship, its hull rippling like liquid obsidian. It didn't reflect light, it consumed it. The vessel had no visible engines, no cockpit, no seams. It was alive, in the way a predator is alive. Silent, calculating, waiting. Valan gestured toward the entrance, which unfolded like a blooming flower. "She's called Cathari. In Xelari it means memory that hunts. She's bonded to me, but she'll accept you if you pass the test." Rick raised an eyebrow. "Test?" Valan stepped aside. "Step inside. Let her read you." Rick entered. The interior was disorienting. No gravity, no fixed geometry. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins, and the air tasted faintly of ozone and memory. A low hum filled the space, vibrating through Rick's bones. Then came the voice, not spoken, but felt. "You are not Xelari. You are not prey. What are you?" Rick closed his eyes. He thought of Earth, of Carly, of the mission. He thought of the man he used to be and the creature he was becoming. "I am change," he whispered. The hum deepened. The walls shifted. A corridor formed, leading to the command chamber. Velan followed, nodding. She accepts you. For now. Inside the chamber, Rick strapped into a neural immersion rig. Velan activated the interface, and a cascade of alien memories flooded Rick's mind. Battle chants, tactical rituals, the scent of Xelari blood, the rhythm of their speech, the weight of their pride. You must learn to walk like them, Velan said, to gesture with authority, to insult with precision. They respect dominance, not diplomacy. Rick's body twitched as the immersion deepened. His fingers elongated slightly, adapting to Xelari syntax. His spine adjusted to mimic their posture of command. His thoughts began to fragment, human logic colliding with alien instinct. Carly's voice echoed in his memory. You don't scare easily. But he was scared now. Not of death, of forgetting who he was. Velan watched him closely. You'll be tested, not just by their generals, but by their gods. Rick opened his eyes. They glowed faintly blue. Then let them test me, he said. Outside, Xelari detached from the orbital platform and slipped into the void, cloaked in silence. The mission had begun. Chapter 5. The Nurse and the Mirror. Rick's body was no longer his own. He stood in the medbay mirror, studying the alien contours of his face. The cheekbones had sharpened, the skin shimmered faintly under the lights, and his pupils had narrowed into vertical slits. He looked like a stranger. Worse, he looked like a target. Carly entered quietly, carrying a tray of nutrient vials and neural stabilizers. She didn't flinch at his appearance. She'd seen every stage of the metamorphosis, catalogued every shift in his DNA. But today, her gaze lingered longer than usual. You're stabilizing, she said, voice soft. Your neural lattice is adapting faster than projected. Rick turned from the mirror. That's good, right? She hesitated. It's efficient. But it means your human neural pathways are being overwritten. Memories, instincts, emotional responses, they're being restructured. Rick sat on the edge of the medbed. So I'm becoming one of them. Carly placed the tray down and sat beside him. You're becoming what the mission needs. But that doesn't mean you're lost. He looked at her, searching for something familiar. Her presence had become his anchor. Her voice, her steadiness, the way she never treated him like a specimen. In the sterile corridors of transformation, she was the only warmth left. Why are you still here? He asked. She smiled faintly. Because you're still Rick, and because I believe in what you're doing. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly. She took it without hesitation. Her skin was warm, human. His was cooler now, faintly iridescent. The contrast was jarring and intimate. I'm scared, he admitted. She nodded. Good. That means you're still fighting. A chime interrupted them. Velan's voice echoed through the calm. Rick. Simulation chamber. Now Rick stood, his posture more Xelari than human. Carly watched him go, her expression unreadable. But as the door closed behind him, she whispered to herself, Don't forget who you are. And somewhere deep in the medical archives, she began reviewing the transformation protocols, not for Rick, but for herself. Chapter 6. Trial by Simulation. The simulation chamber aboard Xelari was unlike any training rig Rick had ever seen. It didn't project holograms or run tactical drills. It rewrote reality. Velan stood at the control node, his elongated fingers dancing across a neural interface. This isn't a test of skill, he said. It's a test of instinct. The ship will simulate a Xelari war council. You'll be placed in a scenario where your behavior must match theirs. Rituals, speech, posture, even emotional cadence. Rick nodded, his body already adapting to the low-gravity environment. His limbs moved with alien grace. His voice had begun to settle into the Xelari tonal range. But inside, he still felt human. Still felt like Rick. The chamber darkened. A pulse of light enveloped him, and suddenly he was standing in a vast obsidian hall, surrounded by towering Xelari commanders. Their armor shimmered with ancestral glyphs, and their eyes glowed with suspicion. A voice boomed from the dais. "State your lineage and purpose." Rick stepped forward, heart pounding. He accessed the neural implant Valen had given him, pulling up a fabricated identity. Commander Threxan of the Outer Flame. "I am Threxan," he said, voice steady. "Born of the flame forged in the siege of Varn. I come to offer tactical insight on the Earth incursion." The room fell silent. One of the commanders stepped forward, his posture aggressive. "What is Earth's weakness?" Rick hesitated. The answer wasn't tactical. It was cultural. He remembered Valen's warning. They respect dominance, not diplomacy. He straightened his spine, narrowed his eyes. Earth's weakness is sentiment. They protect the weak. They hesitate. They believe in mercy. The commander nodded slowly. "And you?" Rick met his gaze. "I believe in victory." The simulation shifted. The War Council dissolved, replaced by a battlefield. Rick stood among Xelari troops, issuing commands in their native tongue. His body moved without thought, gestures precise, orders brutal. He felt the rush of alien instinct, the thrill of dominance. Then the simulation ended. Rick collapsed to the floor, gasping. Valan approached, expression unreadable. "You passed," he said, "but you enjoyed it." Rick looked up, shaken. "I didn't mean to." Valan crouched beside him. "That's the danger. The transformation isn't just physical, it's behavioral, psychological. The more you succeed, the more you become what they are." Rick sat in silence, the weight of the mission pressing down harder than ever. He had infiltrated their world, but at what cost? Back in the medbay, Carly reviewed the simulation logs. She saw the aggression, the precision, the alien confidence in Rick's movements. And she made her decision. Chapter 7. Fractures. Rick stood in the ship's meditation chamber, surrounded by holographic projections of Xelari war rituals. The air shimmered with ancestral chants and simulated bloodshed. His body moved through the gestures automatically, each motion precise, dominant, alien. But inside, something was cracking. He no longer dreamed in English. His memories of Earth came in fragments, blurred images of childhood, echoes of laughter, the scent of rain. Carly's face remained vivid, but even that was beginning to distort. Her voice now sounded distant, like a transmission from a dying star. Valan watched from the shadows. "You're adapting faster than I expected." Rick didn't respond. He was too focused on the simulation, commanding troops, issuing orders in Xelari tongue, executing battlefield maneuvers with ruthless efficiency. "You're becoming dangerous," Valan said. "Not because you're losing yourself, but because you're starting to enjoy it." Rick turned, eyes glowing faintly. "Is that what happened to you?" Valan's expression darkened. "I defected before the pleasure became addiction, before dominance replaced purpose." Rick stepped closer. "And Carly? What happens when she sees what I've become?" Valan hesitated. "She already knows. She's watching every simulation, every shift in your behavior, and she's accepted that the changes will probably be permanent." Valan activated a hidden feed, Carly in the med bay, reviewing transformation protocols. Her hands moved with practiced precision, entering Rick's biometric data into the system. "She's preparing," Valan said, "for what you ultimately become." Rick stared at the feed, stunned. "Why?" Valan's voice was quiet. "Because she loves you. And because she knows you won't come back the same. She wants to meet you, prepared whatever life you can share together." Rick turned away, overwhelmed. The mission was no longer just infiltration. It was metamorphosis. And now, it was shared. Outside the chamber, Xelari drifted through deep space, cloaked and silent. The stars watched, indifferent. And somewhere inside Rick, the last remnants of his human hesitation began to dissolve. Chapter 8, Threshold. Rick emerged from the final phase of the transformation chamber, his body fully Xelari. The skin shimmered with bioluminescent undertones, his limbs moved with fluid precision, and his voice had settled into the low, resonant cadence of the alien elite. He no longer needed the neural interface to speak their language. It came naturally now, like instinct. Carly stood waiting in the medbay, data pad in hand, her expression unreadable. "You're stable," she said. "Vitals are within Xelari norms. Neural cohesion is holding." Rick nodded, but the gesture felt foreign. "I don't feel human anymore." She hesitated. "That's the point." He stepped closer, searching her face for something. Recognition, reassurance, resistance. But she didn't flinch. She was clinical now, distant. The warmth that had once tethered him to Earth felt dimmed. "I need you to tell me if I'm losing myself," he said. Carly looked up, eyes sharp. "You're not lost. You're changed. There's a difference." Rick turned away, unsettled. The mission was days away. Velan had already begun prepping Xelari for deep insertion into Xelari space. The War Council awaited. Rick would be introduced as Commander Threxen, a rising strategist from the Outer Flame. His fabricated history was airtight, his body was perfect, but his soul, if it still existed, was fraying. Later, in the ship's observation chamber, Rick watched the stars drift past. Velan joined him, silent for a moment before speaking. "You're ready," he said, "but readiness is not immunity. They will test you, they will tempt you, and they will try to make you forget." Rick didn't respond. He was thinking of Carly, of the way she hadn't touched him, of the way her voice had changed. "She's afraid," Rick said. Velan nodded. "She should be. You're not who you were, and she doesn't know who you'll be when you return." Rick stared into the void. "If I return," Velan placed a hand on the console, "then make it worth the risk." Back in the medbay, Carly reviewed Rick's final scans. She paused over the neural overlays, tracing the shifts in emotional response patterns. The man she'd cared for was still there, buried beneath layers of alien instinct. She closed the file and stared at her own reflection. But she wasn't ready. Not yet. Chapter 9. The Council of Flame. Xelari emerged from slipspace above the Xelari stronghold of Varn Ka, a fortress planet carved into volcanic stone and wrapped in orbital defense rings. Rick stood at the viewing deck, cloaked in ceremonial armor, his posture rigid with rehearsed authority. Velan adjusted the final glyph on Rick's chestplate, a symbol of rank forged from a fabricated lineage. "You'll enter as Commander Threxen," Velan said. "They'll expect aggression, not humility. Speak with certainty. Never ask. Always declare." Rick nodded, his voice already tuned to the Xelari register. "What if they suspect?" Velan's eyes narrowed. "Then you improvise. Or you die." The shuttle descended into the Citadel's docking bay, greeted by a phalanx of guards with spears that pulsed with plasma. Rick stepped out first, his gait confident, his gaze unflinching. The guards bowed, not out of respect, but protocol. Inside the war chamber, the council awaited. 12 commanders, each seated on a throne of obsidian and flame. Their eyes scanned Rick with predatory precision. "Commander Threxen," one said, voice like grinding stone, "you arrive late." Rick bowed slightly. Victory is never early, only inevitable. A pause, then a ripple of approval, subtle but real. The high strategist, a towering figure named Karun, rose. His armor bore the scars of a dozen planetary sieges. We prepare for Earth. Their defenses are scattered. Their unity is fragile. What is your assessment? Rick stepped forward, activating a holographic display. He'd spent weeks studying Earth's vulnerabilities, crafting a report that was accurate enough to be convincing, but misleading enough to protect key assets. Earth's orbital grid is weak near the equator, he said, but their subterranean bunkers are more advanced than we believed. A frontal assault would trigger global retaliation. I recommend infiltration first, disruption of command, sabotage of infrastructure. Karun studied him. You speak like one who has seen their world. Rick held his ground. I have studied it. I understand it, and I know how to break it. The council murmured. Approval, suspicion, curiosity. Then Karun smiled, a gesture that looked more like a threat. You will lead the infiltration team, prove your strategy, or be replaced. Rick bowed. I will not fail. As the council adjourned, Velan met Rick in the corridor. You've bought time, but now you must sabotage your own plan without being caught. Rick exhaled slowly. And if I am? Velan's voice was cold. Then Earth burns, and you burn with it. Back aboard Xelari, Rick recorded a covert transmission to the Galactic Intelligence Service. The invasion was real. The timeline was accelerating. Earth had weeks, maybe less. And somewhere back on the orbital platform, Carly watched the stars, wondering if the man she'd cared for still existed beneath the alien armor. Chapter 10: The Saboteur's Mask. The infiltration team assembled in the shadow of Varn Ka's southern citadel, a jagged fortress carved into volcanic stone and pulsing with war chants. Rick, Commander Threxin to them, stood at the head of the formation, flanked by elite Xelari operatives bred for planetary subjugation. Each soldier wore armor etched with ancestral glyphs. Each carried a plasma spear tuned to Earth's atmospheric density, and each looked to Rick for orders. He gave them. Target: Earth's orbital relay stations. We strike at dawn. The team dispersed to prepare, but Rick remained behind, activating a covert channel embedded in his neural implant. The transmission was brief, encrypted, and sent to the Galactic Intelligence Service. Infiltration underway, targeting relay stations. Recommend immediate evacuation of Earth's orbital assets. Delay invasion timeline by 72 hours. He closed the channel and turned to find Karun, watching him from the shadows. You speak like a commander, Karun said, but you hesitate like a spy. Rick didn't flinch. Hesitation is strategy. Earth's defenses are reactive. We provoke, then we strike. Karun studied him. You will lead the assault. If it fails, you will answer to the flame. Rick bowed. I will not fail. That night, aboard Xelari, Rick reviewed the sabotage plan. He'd embedded false coordinates into the mission data, enough to misdirect the assault without triggering suspicion. But the margin for error was razor-thin. If even one operative noticed the discrepancy, the entire mission and Earth would be compromised. Velan entered, silent as ever. You're walking a blade, he said. Rick didn't look up. I've walked worse. Velan stepped closer. You're becoming too good at this. They believe you, they follow you, and soon they'll want you to lead more than just an assault. Rick turned, eyes glowing faintly. Then I'll lead them into failure. Velan's expression tightened. Just don't forget which side you're on. Back on the orbital platform, Carly monitored Rick's vitals remotely. His heart rate had stabilized into Xelari norms. His emotional response patterns were increasingly alien. She watched the data scroll past, her fingers hovering over the console. She didn't know what he was doing, but she knew he was slipping away, and she wasn't ready to lose him. Chapter 11. The Fault Line. The infiltration team launched at dawn, cloaked in plasma mist and ritual silence. Rick stood at the helm of the lead vessel, his fabricated identity, Commander Threxen, etched into every gesture, every command. The target, Earth's orbital relay stations. The real objective, misdirection. His sabotage plan was simple in theory. Feed the team false coordinates, reroute their assault to decoy installations, and buy Earth time to evacuate and reinforce. But simplicity rarely survives contact with zealots. Midway through the descent, one of the operatives, Xelari, a tactical purist with a reputation for brutal precision, flagged a discrepancy in the targeting data. "These coordinates deviate from the Flame's directive," Xelari growled. "Explain." Rick didn't flinch. The Flame's directive was based on outdated scans. I recalibrated using real-time orbital drift. The deviation is tactical, not ideological. Xelari narrowed his eyes. "You speak like a strategist, but you think like a traitor." Rick stepped forward, voice low and commanding. "Question me again in front of the unit, and I'll have your rank stripped and your blood offered to the Flame." Silence. Xelari backed down, but the damage was done. Suspicion had been seeded. The assault began. Plasma spears tore through decoy satellites, and Rick's team moved with lethal precision against targets that didn't matter. Earth's real assets remained untouched, thanks to Rick's rerouting. But the victory felt hollow. Back aboard Xelari, Rick reviewed the mission logs. The deception had worked. Earth had gained 72 hours, but Xelari had filed a report flagging Rick's tactical deviation for review by Karun himself. Velan entered, his expression grim. "You bought time, but you've drawn attention. Karun will summon you, and he doesn't ask questions. He extracts truths." Rick leaned against the console, exhausted. "Then I'll give him a truth he can't use." Velan nodded. "Just make sure it's not your last." Meanwhile, on the orbital platform, Carly received the encrypted update. The relay stations were safe. Rick was still alive. But the behavioral data showed increased aggression, elevated dominance responses, and a sharp decline in emotional empathy. She stared at the screen, heart pounding. He was winning, and he was disappearing. Chapter 12. The Strategist's Trial. The summons came at midnight. Xelari received the encrypted directive from Von Ka's Central Command. Rick was to report to the Flame Chamber for strategic review. No explanation, no delay. Velan handed Rick the ceremonial blade required for entry. Karun doesn't interrogate with words. He tests with ritual. You'll be asked to defend your strategy, not with logic, but with dominance. Rick nodded, his body already adapting to the ceremonial posture. "And if I fail?" Velan didn't answer. The flame chamber was carved into the planet's molten crust, its walls pulsing with heat and ancestral fury. Karun stood at the center, surrounded by holographic projections of Earth's defenses, some accurate, some deliberately distorted. "Commander Threxen," Karun said, voice echoing like thunder. "Your assault succeeded, but your deviation from protocol has raised questions." Rick stepped forward, blade in hand. "Questions are for the weak. Results are for the flame." Karun smiled, a gesture that revealed rows of serrated teeth. "Then prove your results. Defend your strategy. Ritual combat. No death, only dominance." A circle formed. Rick entered. His opponent, Xelari, the tactical purist who had flagged Rick's sabotage. His eyes burned with suspicion and pride. The combat began. Rick moved with alien precision, his blade slicing through the air in patterns learned from Valan's training. Jarek countered with brute force, testing Rick's reflexes, his instincts, his resolve. But Rick didn't fight to win. He fought to control the narrative. He allowed Jarek to land glancing blows, enough to show struggle, not weakness. Then, with a final feint and reversal, Rick disarmed him, blade at his throat. "Earth will fall," Rick said, voice cold, "but only if we strike with precision." Not pride. Karun stepped forward, nodding slowly. "You understand the flame. You may proceed." Rick bowed, heart pounding. He had survived the trial, but the cost was rising. Back aboard Xelari, Valan debriefed him. "You've earned their trust, but Jarek won't forget. He'll watch you. Closely." Rick leaned against the console, exhausted. "Then I'll give him something to watch." Meanwhile, Carly received the latest behavioral logs. Rick's aggression had peaked. His dominance responses were near total. But buried deep in the data, one anomaly. During the combat, Rick's heart rate had spiked not during the fight, but during the moment he spoke of Earth. She stared at the screen, unsure what it meant, but she knew one thing. He hadn't given up. Not yet. Chapter 13. The Blueprint of War. The war chamber was quiet. Too quiet. Rick stood alone before the central archive node, deep within Varn Ka's subterranean vault. Access had been granted after his successful trial against Jarek. Karun had declared him worthy of deeper fire. In Xelari terms, that meant trust. In Rick's terms, it meant danger. The archive pulsed with living data, organic strands of memory woven into crystalline matrices. Rick activated the interface, and the invasion plan unfolded like a virus blooming in slow motion. It was worse than expected. Earth wasn't the only target. The Xelari intended to destabilize the entire Terran alliance, Mars colonies, Europa outposts, even the diplomatic enclaves on Titan. The strategy was elegant and brutal. Simultaneous strikes, psychological warfare, and cultural erasure. They didn't want conquest. They wanted silence. Rick downloaded the full plan into a covert neural capsule embedded in his spine. One use, one transmission. But activating it would expose him. The signal was untraceable, but the energy spike would trigger every alarm in Varn Ka. He had to choose, transmit now and flee, or stay embedded and sabotage from within. Valan met him in the corridor, sensing the weight in Rick's posture. "You saw it," Valan said. Rick nodded. "It's not just Earth. It's everything." Valan's jaw tightened. "Then you understand why I left." Rick stared at the capsule's activation node. "If I send this, I burn my cover. If I don't, I gamble with billions of lives." Valan stepped closer. "There's a third option. Stay. Rise. Redirect the invasion from the inside." Rick looked away. "And become what they want me to be?" Valan's voice was quiet. "Or become what Earth needs you to be?" Back aboard Xelari, Rick stared at the stars, the capsule pulsing faintly beneath his skin. He didn't activate it. Not yet. Instead, he began rewriting the next phase of the invasion plan. Subtle delays, false intelligence, logistical bottlenecks. He would sabotage the war not with explosions, but with bureaucracy. Meanwhile, Carly received a silent update. Rick had accessed the archive, but no transmission had been sent. She stared at the screen, heart heavy. He was still inside, still fighting, still hers. Chapter 14. Ripples. The sabotage was working. Rick had embedded delays into the fleet's supply chain, redirecting fuel shipments, corrupting targeting algorithms, and rerouting command protocols through outdated channels. The Xelari war machine, once a model of brutal efficiency, began to stutter. Karun blamed bureaucracy. Jarek blamed sabotage. Rick kept his face neutral, his posture dominant, his voice unwavering. But inside, the pressure was mounting. Every lie had to be perfect. Every misdirection had to feel like strategy, not treason. Jarek cornered him in the tactical chamber after a failed fleet maneuver. "You speak of precision," he hissed, "but your plans unravel. You lead us into delay, into weakness." Rick didn't blink. Weakness is a weapon. Earth expects strength. We give them confusion. They will overextend. Then we strike. Jarek's eyes narrowed. "Or you've already struck." From within, Rick stepped closer, voice low. "Careful, Jarek. Accusation without proof is dishonor, and dishonor is death." Jarek backed off, but not far. He was watching. Always. Back aboard Xelari, Rick reviewed the sabotage logs. The delays were spreading. Earth's defense grid had been reinforced. The invasion timeline was slipping. But so was Rick's grip on his own identity. His emotional response patterns were flattening. Human empathy, once a quiet undercurrent, now barely registered. He could still remember Carly's face, but it felt like a photograph, not a memory. Meanwhile, Carly sat alone in the orbital medbay, reviewing Rick's latest scans. His vitals were stable, his neural cohesion was perfect, but his emotional data was nearly flatlined. She stared at the screen, heart aching. He was alive, but he was vanishing. She closed the file and walked to the transformation chamber. Not to enter, not yet, but to stand in its shadow, and to wonder how far she'd go to bring him back. Chapter 15. The Signal. Rick stood in Xelari's command chamber, watching the sabotage ripple outward. Fleet deployments were delayed. Tactical orders contradicted themselves. Supply chains collapsed under the weight of falsified logistics. Earth had gained days, maybe a week. But Jarek was closing in. The tactical purist had begun cross-referencing Rick's orders with planetary archives, searching for inconsistencies. He'd already flagged 3 anomalies. One more, and Karun would be forced to act. Rick had no choice. He activated the neural capsule embedded in his spine. The pain was immediate, like fire threading through his nervous system. The capsule pulsed once, then transmitted. A burst of encrypted data shot through subspace, bypassing Xelari firewalls and reaching the Galactic Intelligence Service. The full invasion plan, every target, every timeline, every vulnerability. Rick collapsed to the floor, gasping. Valon rushed in, scanning the room. "You sent it?" Rick nodded, barely conscious. "They know." "Earth knows." Valen helped him to his feet. "Then we run." But it was too late. Alarms blared across Xelari. The transmission had triggered a security spike. Xelari protocols flagged the energy signature. The war chamber was already dispatching intercept teams. Rick staggered to the console. "We can't outrun them." Valon's eyes narrowed. "Then we outthink them." He initiated a cloaking maneuver, one that would temporarily mask Xelari's location by mimicking the quantum signature of a dying star. Risky, illegal, brilliant. Meanwhile, on the orbital platform, Carly received the transmission. She stared at the decrypted files, heart racing. Rick had done it. Earth was no longer blind. The invasion could be stopped. But the final data packet contained something else. A message. "Carly, if I don't make it back, know this. I remembered you, even when I couldn't feel it, even when I wasn't sure I was still me. I remembered." She closed the file, tears in her eyes. Then she walked to the transformation chamber, and this time she stepped inside. Chapter 16. The Escape and the Echo. Xelari trembled under the strain of the cloaking maneuver. The ship's organic systems groaned, its hull warping to mimic the quantum decay of a dying star. Rick clutched the console, his body still recovering from the neural capsule's activation. Every muscle ached, every thought felt like it was being filtered through static. Valen worked fast, rerouting power from the ship's weapons to its stealth matrix. They'll scan for anomalies. We have minutes. Rick nodded, his voice hoarse. Then let's vanish. Outside, Xelari intercept vessels swept the sector, their sensors tuned to betrayal. The war chamber had issued a silent directive. Capture Commander Threxin alive, interrogate, extract, erase. Inside Cathari, Rick initiated a false distress beacon, broadcasting a fabricated emergency from a nearby asteroid belt. The signal mimicked a Xelari scout ship under attack by Terran forces. It worked. The intercept vessels diverted course. Valen exhaled. You bought us time. Again. Rick slumped into the pilot's chair. Time's all I've got left. Meanwhile, on the orbital platform, Carly lay inside the transformation chamber. The procedure had begun. Her skin shimmered faintly. Her neural pathways were being rewritten. The pain was sharp, but she didn't cry out. She focused on Rick's message, on the memory of his voice, on the promise buried in his final words. I remembered you. She clung to that. The medbay was empty. No one knew what she was doing. No one had authorized it. But she didn't care. She wasn't waiting for permission. She was choosing transformation, not for the mission, but for love, for equality, for reunion. Back aboard Cathari, Rick stared at the stars, unaware of what Carly had done. He believed he'd lost her, believed she'd never follow him into the fire. But he was wrong, and soon he would learn just how far she'd gone to meet him in the dark. Chapter 17. Between Worlds. Keithari drifted through the outer reaches of the Varn-Ka system, cloaked in quantum decay. Rick sat in the ship's meditation chamber, his body still recovering from the neural transmission. His skin pulsed with alien bioluminescence, but his thoughts were fractured, half Xelari, half human, all exhausted. Valan monitored the ship's systems. Earth received the data. Their fleets are mobilizing. The invasion won't be clean anymore. Rick nodded. Good. Chaos favors defense, but he didn't smile. He hadn't smiled in weeks. The sabotage had worked. The transmission had landed. But the cost was mounting. Jarek had issued a formal challenge, an honor duel sanctioned by the Flame. Rick would have to face him, publicly, fatally. Valan turned from the console. You can't win that fight without becoming what they are. Rick looked up. Then I'll fight like something else. Meanwhile, on the orbital platform, Carly's transformation entered its final phase. Her skin shimmered faintly. Her neural pathways had begun to reconfigure. She could already hear the tonal shifts in her own voice, feel the alien cadence in her thoughts. But she held on to one thing. Rick's message. I remembered you. She hadn't told anyone, not Hathaway, not the medbay staff. Her transformation was unauthorized, unsupervised, and irreversible. But she didn't care. She wasn't becoming Xelari to infiltrate. She was becoming Xelari to meet Rick where he was, on the edge of identity, in the space between species. Back aboard Cathari, Rick stared at the stars. He didn't know Carly had begun her transformation, didn't know she was changing for him, but he felt something, a flicker, a pulse, a memory that didn't fade, and for the first time in days, he whispered her name, Carly. Chapter 18. The Duel. The arena was carved into the heart of Varn-Ka's volcanic ridge, surrounded by obsidian spires and watched by the full Xelari War Council. Ritual combat was sacred, less about victory, more about dominance, legacy, and truth. and today Rick stood at its center. Jarek entered with ceremonial armor and a plasma blade forged from ancestral ore. His eyes burned with suspicion, his posture rigid with vengeance. "You've misled us," he said. "Your tactics reek of Terran hesitation. Today we strip away your mask." Rick said nothing. He activated his own blade, its edge humming with unstable energy. He wasn't here to win. He was here to survive, and to protect the lie that had saved Earth. The duel began. Jarek struck first, fast, brutal, precise. Rick countered with fluid evasions, his movements more strategic than instinctual. The crowd watched in silence, their judgment hanging in the air like smoke. Blades clashed, sparks flew. Rick took a hit to the shoulder, deep but not fatal. He staggered, then pivoted, landing a blow across Jarek's chest plate. The crowd murmured. The duel was balanced, but Jarek was relentless. He feinted, reversed, and drove Rick to the edge of the arena. Then, with a sudden burst of fury, he disarmed him. Rick fell to his knees. Jarek raised his blade. "Confess." "Who are you?" Rick looked up, blood trailing from his lip. "I am Threxin, born of the flame, forged in war." Jarek hesitated. The lie was perfect. The posture was flawless. But the eyes, there was something human in them, something defiant. Karun stood. "Enough. The flame has spoken. Threxin remains." Jarek lowered his blade, defeated but unconvinced. Rick was escorted from the arena, his body bruised, his cover intact, for now. Meanwhile, Carly emerged from the transformation chamber. Her body had changed, her voice had shifted, but her memories remained intact. She was Xelari in form, human in heart, and she was ready. She boarded a covert transport bound for the outer systems. Her destination, Von Ka. Her mission, find Rick. Her reason, love. Chapter 19, The Return. Rick stood at the edge of the launch platform, overlooking the molten horizon of Von Ka. The War Council had begun to fracture. His sabotage had seeded doubt, delay, and internal conflict. Earth was mobilized. The invasion was stalled. His mission was complete, but he felt no triumph. Valan approached, silent as ever. "You've done what no one else could. You stopped a war before it began." Rick didn't respond. He was staring at the stars, searching for something he couldn't name. "I should feel relief," he said, "but all I feel is absence." Valan nodded. "You've given up everything, your body, your name, your place in the world." Rick turned. "And Carly? She'll never see me the same." Valan hesitated. "You don't know that." Rick boarded Xelari, preparing for departure. The ship's systems hummed with quiet anticipation. He would return to Earth, but not as Rick London. As something else, something unrecognizable. Then the alert chimed. A vessel approached, small, cloaked, bearing no Xelari signature. Rick scanned the incoming data. The biometric readings were familiar, impossible. He rushed to the viewing deck. The transport docked. The hatch opened, and Carly stepped out. Her form was Xelari, elegant, luminous, alien, but her eyes were hers, human, fierce, full of love. Rick froze. She stepped forward, voice steady. "You didn't lose me." He tried to speak, but emotion caught in his throat. "I chose this," she said. "Not for the mission. For you. So we could be together, as equals." Rick reached out, his hand trembling. She took it. Their skin shimmered in unison. Two beings transformed, not by war, but by choice. Valan watched from the shadows, a quiet smile on his face. "You were the agent of change," he whispered, "but she was the reason. Chapter 20. The Flame and the Memory. Xelari hovered in low orbit above Von Ka, its systems quiet, its mission complete. Rick stood at the viewing deck beside Carly, their hands intertwined, alien in form, human in memory. The War Council had fractured, the invasion had stalled, Earth had fortified, and the Xelari elite had begun to turn inward, questioning their own doctrine. Velan approached, his voice low. "The Council won't pursue you." "Not yet. Too many fractures. Too much doubt." Rick nodded. "Then we leave before they remember how to unify." Carly turned to him. "Where will we go?" Rick looked out at the stars. Somewhere forgotten, somewhere quiet, somewhere we can decide who we are, without war, without masks. She smiled. "Then let's make that place ours." They boarded the escape vessel, small, fast, unregistered. Velan handed Rick a final data shard, a record of every sabotage, every transmission, every moment of resistance. "You were the agent of change," he said, "but she was the reason it mattered." Rick took the shard. "And you?" Velan smiled faintly. "I was the witness." "That's enough." The vessel launched, slipping past the fractured Xelari patrols, vanishing into deep space. On Earth, the Galactic Intelligence Service decoded Rick's final transmission. The invasion was halted. The orbital platforms were reinforced. The Terran Alliance began to rebuild, not just defenses, but trust. And in the archives, Rick and Carly's story was classified as myth. Two operatives who became something more. Two lovers who chose transformation over destruction. Two souls who rewrote the ending. Far from war, on a quiet moon orbiting a forgotten star, Rick and Carly built a new life. They planted memory trees, bioluminescent flora that pulsed with shared emotion. They spoke in both languages. They dreamed in both forms. And when they told their story, they didn't speak of war. They spoke of choice, of love, of change. The end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.